Hi, welcome to my YouTube channel today. My name is Michael Bali. I'm a certified project management professional. And if you're joining us for the first time, I would really, first, before we continue, if you join us for the first time, we've been on a series. We're just ongoing in a series, and the first topic in this series was the project integration management. And it was an introductory topic to the series. And today we're looking at the next subsidiary or the first subsidiary project management plan in the project management predictive methodology, which is the project scope management. So if you want to kind of link up to all the videos under the series, I would really recommend that you subscribe and hit the like button so that as the videos keep dropping, you will get them the moment they drop. Yes. Meanwhile, this is Project Management Knowledge Arena with Uchenna Michael Valley. I want you to sit tight because I'm going to be back just in a bit. Yes, thank you very much. This is the Project Management Knowledge Arena with Uchenna Michael Valley. And today, today I'm going to be talking about the project scope management. What is project scope management? What is it all about? What is involved in project scope management. That's what we're going to be talking about today. And I want you to pay keen attention because this topic is very essential to those who are preparing for their PMP exam, very essential to those who are practicing professionals. And I want you to pay attention because it's going to be quite helpful to this category of people I just mentioned. Yes. So project scope management. What is project scope management? Right. So the project scope management is like you defining the boundaries of a project. It's like you asking yourself what is involved in this project, or what is not part of this project. So that is what scope is all about. You want to make sure you know what is involved in the project and what is not involved in the project. So project scope management is a crucial aspect of project management. It involves defining, it involves controlling and managing what work is required and what is not accomplished and what not to accomplish, what not to accomplish in the project. All right. Good. So a well-defined project scope sets clear boundaries. That's one thing, very important. It sets a clear boundary, clearly understandable by anyone. Yes. And it sets clear objective as well. It gives you direction, vision, and also a clear deliverable. That I mean the final product or the final outcome of any piece of the project or the final outcome of the project itself. And also it ensures that the project stays on track and within budget. So that's the importance of having the scope clearly defined. And you need to understand this presentation will cover the key processes and best practices in project management. Yes. So also, I just want to, when you hear the word project scope, you need to understand that we're looking at it in two dimensions. The first of it is going to be the product scope, and it's telling you, or you're asking yourself, what is the scope or the boundaries, all right, of the product, which is what you want to achieve on the end of the project. So what is the boundary? What are the boundaries? All right. So what are the requirements, the features of that product? And the other one is the project scope itself. All right. So the projects, what are the limits of this project, the boundaries of the project? What should I do and what should I not do? What are the things I should do in this project? And what are the things that cannot be said to be part of this project? So that is what scope is all about. So you should be looking at scope in those two dimensions, the product scope, the scope of the product. Have it in mind that there has been, we're going to look at all the principles of now on how we're going to go about, preparing the scope of the project, all right, or planning on getting ready or developing the scope of the project. Now, the key process of project scope management, the key processes of project scope management. The first thing you do, All right. If you may be asking yourself, in defining my project scope, what should I do? How do I go about defining my project scope? So this is what this tells you about. Now, the first thing you have to do is that you need to bear in mind that for you to clearly define your scope, you must have a clear understanding of the requirements of the project in the project. Okay. Now, what are the requirements? Okay, so the first phase is the collect requirements phase, where you have to elicit and gather stakeholders' needs and expectations and objectives. Okay, so you should be able to sit and collect all the needs, elicit all the needs from the stakeholders and all the expectations. Okay, their desires, what they actually want to see at the end of the project should be. You should be able to sit down and envision what they want, what they hope to see as the product or by the end of the project. So that's the first thing you have to do. So that means there are so many methodologies you have to put in place. You have to organize meetings. You have to, put together stakeholder, meetings, and then see how you can actually elicit this information. And also you have to use, various techniques like maybe interviews. You conduct interviews, ask questions. You also conduct workshops before the project and also surveys to define detailed requirements. Then after that, that is going to be the first of it. And you would agree with me that after the college requirement phase, it's expected that you should have all the requirements for that project. It all depends on the nature of the project. If it's a road project, you need to know the road designs, the standard of the road, the material requirements, the length of the road, the breadth of the road, the hierarchy of road you want to calculate, you want to construct. And then with that, you should be able to understand, you should have, with proper calculation, you should be able to kind of have a better understanding and then accurate measures of the material requirements, of the staff, requirements, of, every form of regard, financial requirement and all that. So that is what the college requirements is all about. And after this, you have a clear understanding, then you define your scope. After this, the next thing is going to be that you clearly articulate the project deliverables, objectives, and boundaries. All right, so you're going to tell us, or you should be able to say, okay, from this phase of this project to this phase of this project, I ought to have gone this far in this project. So when you're saying going this far in this project, that is a deliverable in that phase of the project. So you should be able to define or break down your project into phases, okay, and then see how you can actually articulate all the deliverables and objectives of the project, and then you should be able to clearly define the boundaries of your project. Then also you develop a scope statement that includes the project objectives, major deliverables, assumptions, and constraints. So you should be able to develop a statement, a scope statement, and that talks about the statement should, it kind of includes the objective of this project. What is the objective? All right. So what are the major deliverables? The major features in the feature products that you need to come up with. What are the assumptions in this project? When we talk about assumptions, you're talking about, okay, is there a possibility that we might not meet up with the deadline of the project? Okay, what could be the economic situation of the country, the social situation of the country, the terrain, the atmospheric situation or condition of the country at this time that we want to carry out the project. So based on that, you should be able to draw up some assumptions. Maybe you should be able to tell us that, okay, the schedule, we might not be able to meet up with our schedule because this period is actually the rainy season. All right, so you have to look at all that and put something and assumptions together, and then you look at the constraints as well. Okay, what are the constraints? Okay, maybe you want to carry out a road project, a road of about maybe 100 meters, and then you discover that you don't have enough pond to actually kind of accomplish the project as expected. So it's going to be a constraint. Then you look at other constraints as well. It could be that maybe you don't have qualified manpower to be able to carry out this project, experienced people on ground to carry out this project. It's going to be a constraint. So you look at all this, write this down, put them together and see how you can actually tackle them in the course of the project. Then you have to, once you've done that, you have a clearer view of the project. Now, the next thing is going to be for you to create your work breakdown structure. The work breakdown structure is a very important aspect of the project because it helps you to plan yourself before you start executing your project. So it divides you in the work breakdown structure phase of the project of the project scope definition. You divide the project into smaller, manageable work packages, and then hierarchically organize tasks to facilitate planning, execution, and monitoring. Now, I think one of my videos in the past, we kind of showed us a picture, a very good diagram showing the work breakdown structure. And for instance, you want to construct maybe one-story building, for instance. So in the work breakdown structure, you have to break it down from the design stage. You can say from this time to this time is going to be design. Then what department, who is going to handle the design aspect of the project? Then once the design is done, the next thing is going to be, maybe you talk about, okay, now we're going to start off immediately with project execution. Then we're going to start with the site analysis and all that. So that's the next phase of the project. You analyze your sites, you look at the runoffs, you look at the slope of the sites, you look at the nature of the soil, the bearing capacity, you do all analysis in your project. And then at the end, you come up with a concluded analysis of the site, and then you can now start up with the earth moving works. Then after the next earth work, that the next thing is going to be there. So you just keep lining them up. Okay, you're breaking down the work. It's called disintegration. You're breaking down this work into manageable pieces, okay, that will make it easy for you to manage the projects. So that's what we call creating your work breakdown structure. Then after that, you're going to verify your scope. All right, so you don't just define your scope and create a work breakdown structure and start working on the project. There is a need for general acceptance of the scope, meaning that you have to obtain acceptance of the project deliverable from stakeholders. You have to sit down again with the stakeholders. Haven't gone this far in the project, then you tell them this is what the project is all about. This is what we have said and we have done so far. And we don't know if there's any input from the stakeholders. How do you see what we've done? Is it okay? Is it not okay? Do we have enough money on ground? Can we actually accomplish this project? All right. So the stakeholders you need to get stakeholders buy-in to tell you if we should go on with the project or not. So the verification of the scope is very important. Then you ensure alignment of scope with project objective. You need to make sure that the scope you're defining is in line with the project's objective. Then you control the scope. All right. So once your scope has been defined and verified, you've gotten approval from the stakeholders. The next thing you're going to do is to make sure that while the project is in progression, you need to make sure that you are controlling the scope of the project, meaning that you have your eyes on the scope. You want to make sure that the defined scope of the project, the project is going in line with the scope defined. All right, so you monitor and manage changes to the project scope. So even if you have to make a change, you still have to go through the integrated change control like we discussed before. You need to consult with the stakeholders. You need to consult with the project owner. You need to consult with affected stakeholders and see how you can actually get buy-in from them. And whatever decision that is going to be made in terms of making changes in the project will have to be, generally agreed by all before such changes can be made. And once that is done, the version of the project management plan will need to be updated so that everyone will be in the know about the changes that have been made. And also you need to assess the impact of changes and adjust project plans accordingly, just like I just said. If you're going to make any change, then you have to update the version of the project management plan. And also you have to prevent scope creep and manage risk associated with scope changes. Yes, the funniest thing about project management at times is that sometimes when you go on in a project, like when we talk about scope creep simply means that you are extending beyond the boundaries of the project. That is scope creep. Okay, you as a project manager going beyond the boundaries, generally the agreed boundary that was defined for the project. So that is called scope creep. Now, as much as possible, you want to prevent that because it can affect your project plan, it can affect your cost. If you're extending beyond the boundaries, it's going to be extra cost for you. It's going to affect your schedule because it's going to be extra time for you. So that is not effective project management. So you have to make sure that you have your eyes on the project management or on your plan and the scope. You want to make sure that you're not shooting out, beyond the boundaries of your project scope. And also, what are the importance of project scope management? What are the importance? Now, the importance, avoiding scope creep. All right. So the essence of defining the boundaries or the scope, so that's what you don't shoot beyond the acceptable boundaries, defined boundaries of the project. So properly defining and controlling the scope prevents uncontrolled expansion, helping maintain focus on project objectives. All right. For instance, you're asked to do, to execute a road of 100 meters, and then without, informing anybody, outside the plan and the scope of the project, you're already shooting up to 120 meters. All right. So it doesn't make any sense. So the essence of clearly defining the scope is to make sure that we avoid this. All right. So scope creep, like I clearly said, scope creep means that what you're going beyond the boundaries of the project. Another name for it is called gold plating. Like those who are going to write their PMP exam, you're going to see this. Instead of scope creep, they're going to tell you gold plating. So another name for scope creep is means it also means what? Gold plating. Yes. So at times you want to impress your customers. They're giving you the design and requirement that you feel within your mind something should be much more better than what you are asked to design. For instance, you're asked to design an iPhone with just a touch, a touch screen, okay? Then you feel, instead of a touch screen, I think I should add an additional feature like maybe the voice recognition feature. But it was not generally agreed by all the stakeholders. So if you're adding that to the product, it is called scope creep because it wasn't part of the agreement. So you shouldn't do that. If that has to be done, it has to be generally agreed by the stakeholders. Yes. So importance of project management, scope management is that what it avoids scope creep, cost and time management. It helps you to be in line, to work in line with the costs, and also with your schedule, with your time. Okay. Then stakeholder satisfaction, because the scope has been generally verified by the stakeholders and accepted by all. So if you work with that scope, you're going to have customer satisfaction, stakeholder satisfaction, and all that. So clear scope documentation ensures alignment between stakeholders' expectation and project outcomes. Then effective resource allocation. If your scope is clearly defined, then you notice that you're going to actually allocate your resources effectively. Yes, if you have, I am just using a 100 meters road so that I can make my explanation very clear. If you have a road of 100 meters, you sit down. Maybe you have a road of 100 meters and the width is 7 meters and the depth of the road is maybe 500 mm, for instance. Okay, 500 mm. Okay, all right. Okay, 5,000 mm. Okay, now maybe you sit down. All you need to do is just to calculate the material quantity. You can actually calculate the material quantity of the road in question. All right, you calculate just the material requirements of the road in question. Now, by doing that, you're doing that. The scope actually guides you as you work on that, because now you have a clear understanding that the length of the road is 100 meters, the width of the road is 7 meters, and then the depth of the road is around it's around 1 meter. Okay, let's say 1,000 mm. Okay, let's say 1 meter, for instance. All right, now you have that clear understanding. That is the scope of the project. So if you're doing your calculation, it has to be within that definition. Okay, so and if you're also planning for your materials for that area of the road, you're going to be guided by the scope as well, because all you need to do, just take the length, the breadth, and the depth of the road, do a multiplication. It's going to give you the volume, of the requirement, of the material requirements in volume, the requirement of the material in volume, based on the scope that has been defined. So effective resource allocation, and also you ask yourself, how many, the number of staff needed to actually carry out this project. All right, that also is clearly defined because you have everything clearly defined by the scope. So it helps you to effectively, allocate your resources. Accurate scope definition aids in efficient, resource allocation and also maximizing productivity. Yes. Then also benefits of effective scope, management. We see clarity and focus. All right. You're not confused in your project. You're not wondering, are you sure I'm supposed to do this or that? No, already scope has been defined. There is clarity of vision. So you're not confused. And also risk mitigation. Okay, there's a high level of risk reduction because scope management helps identify potential risk and also enable effective risk mitigation strategies. And also customer satisfaction because while you're defining your scope, you're carrying your customers along. As a matter of fact, in the collect requirements aspect of it, you are actually interviewing your customers. You're getting feedback from the customers. You want to know what they want, not what you want, because the idea behind all this is just customer satisfaction. You're not trying to satisfy yourself, you are trying to satisfy your customers. So that's the idea. So you want to know what they need. All right. So customer satisfaction. So meeting agreed upon scope ensured customer satisfaction and enhancing the organizational reputation. That means your reputation will be highly protected. Yes. And also change control. Efficient scope management streamlines change control procedures, reducing disruptions during project execution. So if you're going on and then you want to make a change in the project, already you have a baseline, meaning an agreed scope. So what you need to do is to effect the change and know what you're adding to the scope of the project. That means you're coming up with a new version of the initially agreed scope and project in the project management plan. All right, so it gives you a measure of calculation, a measure of a kind of a basis for measuring, all right, changes in the project. Yeah, so these are the benefits. Then best practices for project scope management. All right. Now we need to understand the best practices for project scope management. The first thing you need to do, which is very important, is your involvement of your stakeholders. You have to engage stakeholders as early as possible in your project, especially in the collect requirements piece of the scope management. Involve stakeholders from the beginning to understand their needs and expectations. All right. So also bear in mind that your project, okay, is a function, or the scope is a function of the stakeholders' needs and requirements, right? Not your needs, not your requirements. All right. So you should be, as much as possible, you should be interested to know what your stakeholders want. And the reason is because you want final acceptance of your deliverable. Yes. So engage them. That's the best practice. And also use clear language. Use unambiguous language in the scope statement to avoid misinterpretation. Now, in the scope statement, your language should be very clear and understandable to all, because when we talk about collection of all the stakeholders, by the time we talk about when we get to the stakeholder management, you're going to see that, there are stakeholders of different categories and hierarchies. Some are educated, some are not educated, some are, professionals, some are not, some are experienced, some are not. So your scope statement should be one that should be able to capture the interest of everyone, and everyone should be in the picture of whatever you're doing. So you should be able to clearly communicate to your stakeholders. And also, you should define measurable objectives. Okay, you don't define objectives that are not achievable. All right, you are not trying to impress anybody. Yes, you have a good plan, you have a good you have a very good sense of design, and you might come up with the best plan ever, but then all the same, you must make sure that you keep your objectives, all right, very smart. Okay, ensure that your objectives are specific, they are measurable, they are achievable, they are relevant and time bound. All right, don't give yourself exaggerated objectives that are not achievable. So as much as possible, we want to make sure that whatever is happening, within the project scope aspects of the project, we want to make sure that what we want to come up with is actually smart, is achievable. All right. So now, best practices still regularly review your scope. Regularly, you need to review your scope. Continuously review and validate the scope throughout the project life cycle. You have to regularly review. For the fact that you have actually collected requirements and defined your scope does not mean that you cannot add to the scope of the project. Yes, at times in the project, you notice that some requirements are not captured at the initial stage of the project. So yes, there is still room for you to add them. But while you're doing that, you have to update the version of your project management plan. And also while you're updating the version of the project management plan, you must put all the stakeholders in the project in the picture. Let them be aware of these updates. and let them be aware of this configuration, the new version of the project management plan that came up due to the new changes you're making in the project. And then document the changes as well. Maintain a formal change control process to document and assess, scope changes. All right. So while you're making changes in your project management plan, make sure you document your changes. For instance, you came up with the first version of the project management plan. Everyone agrees that this is just perfect. This is going to be the scope, 100 meters road. The depth is going to be 1 meter. The width of the road is going to be 7 meters. The 7 meters, and then all of a sudden somebody comes up and says, no, let's just make the depth, actually increase the depth of the road, possibly because the nature of the soil is not just, the soil is not a stable, kind of soil, and the terrain is not so stable. So for that reason, there's a need for you to add to the depth of the road and all that. So if that is coming up, then that means you're adding to the scope. Now you must document all the changes you're making. You have to add to the scope, get all the approval, and document the changes. Communicate changes effectively. I've said this over and over again, please. If you're making any change, please make sure everyone is aware. For instance, it will be very fun. Maybe in a construction department, you have the earth moving department, you have the concrete department, and then all of a sudden, while they are working, you have the material control, and then something comes up at the earth moving. Now you decide to increase the depth of the road, but the person in charge of the material calculation and everything is not aware, and then he kept working with the previous scope of the project. Now there's going to be a miscommunication somewhere between the lines, and there could be issues along the lines. So that's why it's important that if you're making any change at the earth moving section, please, everyone should be carried along. The project manager should be able to integrate all the changes. Okay, let everyone be aware. Let's see how we can update the version and configuration of the project management plan, and all the stakeholders in the project should be aware of changes that are made in the project. Somebody's paying for the project. So if you're adding to the debt, that means more cost, right? Now, if you're adding to the debt, possibly, that means you're adding more to the time of completion of the project. So everyone should be aware of the changes you're making in the project. Then also, for us to be able to effectively carry out the project scope and to manage our project scope, we have tools and techniques for project scope management. The first one is brainstorming. All right, so you have to brainstorm, gather ideas and requirements, from stakeholders through open discussion. You need to come together, you brainstorm, and then you come together, ask questions, gather ideas, throughout the idea, let them know about the project, and then get buy-in from all the stakeholders. And then scope diagram, use the visual representations like the mind map, okay, or the flow charts to illustrate the project scope. Okay, as much as possible, it's always advisable for you to make things very big, a kind of so you have to make a kind of we're trying to encourage a kind of visual display, objects, all right, in our projects, where you can actually, anyone, anywhere can actually see what you're talking about, because most times what you see, all right, it's so easy for you to understand what you see with your physical eye. You're actually looking at what we're talking about, and it's very easy for you to understand that. So we want to see how we can adopt visual methodologies where you're bringing all these flow charts, the mind maps, and then you want to illustrate the scope of the project. They are seeing the diagram. You place the diagrams on the wall. You show them the dimension, the distance from here to the other side. You show them the depth of the road. Show them the cross section of the road and whatever you want to construct, or the building or whatsoever. Let them see the scope of the building. Let them see the design and everything. The colors of the building. You can bring up a 3D, display, all right, of the building design or a road design or whatsoever, and everybody just looking at it and they'll feel, no, this is not okay, this is okay, because they can actually see it before the end product. All right, so scope diagram, very important. Then also expert judgment. All right, so seek advice and input from subject matter experts to validate scope related decisions. There are experts. All right, so it's part of the knowledge management, project knowledge management. So you have to go to the experts and seek advice from them. You don't work in isolation. You want to make them. You want to know how best this project can be accomplished. Then project management software. So we have a lot of softwares today that makes life so easy for us. We have the MS project, okay? we have the Jira software. All right, so we have a lot of software you can actually lay your hands on today, and with them you can actually manage your scope. You can create your WBS, the work program structure. You can track your project progress, and to make sure that you are working in line, your execution of the project is in alignment with the scope definition, and also manage changes effectively. So there are a lot of software you can use to manage changes as well. Now, in conclusion, project scope management is essential for successful project delivery. All right. You don't go into a project without defining the scope. It's essential. And also, a well-defined scope ensures project objectives are met efficiently and effectively. And also, regular monitoring and control of scope changes are crucial to avoid project derailment. So you need to keep your eye on the scope, even when the project is going on. You need to make sure that you're working in line with the scope, so that in case if there's any case of scope creep or conflating, you can be able to correct it immediately. All right. So also by following best practices and using appropriate tools, project managers can achieve better outcomes and stakeholder satisfaction. Yes. So that's just it today in our project scope management. I believe you learned something today. Yes. So in the next class, we're going to be looking at the next thing. All right. Today we've looked at the project scope. The next thing we're going to look at in our next class is going to be the project schedule management. All right. So like I told you, we're going through a series. We've looked at the project integration management, and now we just looked at project scope management. And in the next lesson, I'm going to be teaching on the project schedule management. So please, if you are not subscribed in this channel, please do. Just look down below. You're going to see the subscribe button. Just hit the subscribe button, and also hit the like button, so that anytime I drop the video, so that you'll be able to follow through in the series of the project management knowledge. And also, thank you very much today. Once again, my name is Uchenna Michael Abali. It's my pleasure to have you sit there and listen till this time. Thank you very much. See you in the next lesson.